Hello, Olga Fomenko from MatchOffice. You are the head of marketing for MatchOffice platform, which is an intermediary between flexworkspace and operator of meeting rooms and customers. You have this online platform based in Denmark and also Ukraine, as far as we know. And the purpose of the discussion was to go through your 2020 survey, which is, of course, covering a lot of the impact of the crisis we are just going through right now for co-working space and what they expect from the future. Also on the short term and then the longer term. So welcome here, and maybe can you tell us just a brief information? Tell us a bit more about MatchOffice activity and maybe the report as well.
Sure. Hello, Jean-Yves. Nice to see you. So our company, as you already mentioned, we help find clients for workspaces worldwide. We are conducting a report every year, so this has been the 6th year so far, where we try to find out tendencies regarding occupancy, pricing, contract lengths, so different tendencies of the industry, and of course the operators' let's say outlook on the business in general. So initially, when we started, everything was actually looking really great. We saw positive tendencies year on year, especially when co-working emerged.
Yeah.
Actually, things were looking really great. Occupancies rose. There were really many different tendencies. For example, let's say a couple of years ago, everyone was raving about working in an open space, how good it is for the productivity. But then last year, there was another different research that contradicted that and said that open space wasn't actually good. It was distracting. So everyone switched more to closed offices. But last year, 2019, actually was pretty stable in terms of occupancies and pricing. So everyone had great prediction towards 2020. But then, as we all know, we faced with some really unprecedented situation.
Yeah.
And we're still unfortunately seeing the consequences right now.
Yeah, from the report, if we read it year after year, it's, as you said, that occupancy rate is because you split it by countries. Almost everywhere we are above the 90%. That's what the numbers are showing. That expectation and confidence is pretty high overall. And this year, of course, we have the impact. Maybe the first. We can tell about it. More than 60% of the average of the spaces you have interviewed and for the report say that they expect for a dramatic impact of the crisis up to the upcoming 6 months. That's not it's over now, and we say okay, everybody is moving back to the office and to the co-working space, but no, they expect overall an half year still of our time to go. That's what's coming up from your research, isn't it?
Exactly. As now we have the requirement for social distancing. We all are working from home, and actually a lot of tenants they decided to work from home on an indefinite basis. So now the most popular option is virtual office, and people sometimes get it together with meeting rooms to be able to meet up for some brainstorming.
Physical meeting room.
I'm sorry?
Still physical meeting rooms.
Yes, physical meeting rooms, because sometimes it's difficult to brainstorm via Zoom. So we still need to have this physical networking. But this is what it looks like, that in the nearest half year, occupancies will still be low.
So up to 60%. So as we were mentioning, so if I look at your number, so it's an overall number. So they expect 60% of them expect it to remain flat as it is now, and only 30% expect an improvement in the coming 6 months. So is there a specific profile you see that are show higher optimism as on average than some others. Can you say that indeed that kind of spaces or this kind of location might see an improvement sooner than some others?
Well, I think for bigger operators, it will be easier because, like, let's say operators like Regis, they have longer terms of contracts. Usually it's from 5 to, let's say, 10 months.
Yeah.
And if this is a bigger business center, it can be occupied by different kinds of companies, bigger and smaller companies. So this is why they might still maintain occupancy.
Okay.
But if this is a small operator that is mostly occupied by freelancers, now that everyone is working from home, people are just leaving, so some workspaces are just standing empty.
Yeah. Okay, and what about the differences by countries? And you were saying that in some countries when the impact was a little bit lower in terms of occupancy, indeed, and usage of the space, like you mentioned Denmark, Belgium, Germany, the confidence was slightly higher than in Italy and Spain, for instance. And that in North America, for instance, you were seeing the same kind of tendency that we were mentioning in those southern European countries. So how can you comment that as well? As is there really a correlation between how hard these countries has been hit by the pandemic and the expected occupation that they have in the space? Or yes, it's not that black or white.
Well, of course, there is a definite correlation between how the country was hit by pandemic. So, for example, if we take Europe countries like Italy and Spain, where the outbreak was really the biggest, they reported they were influenced by this crisis a lot. And if we take countries like Denmark and Netherlands and Belgium, they mostly reported that things were pretty calm. But first of all, this is because of the size of the pandemic, but also because there was government support packages for those countries that may have benefited them. So
Okay.
this is,
In what
I think,
sense? In what sense? So, meaning for the tenants, for instance, they got some grants that help them to stay and pay their subscription. So for the spaces, or
exactly. So the countries were more supportive of businesses and provided help and support packages. So I think this is how a lot of businesses managed to stay afloat.
Okay. And what about the products that those spaces are offering? So you mentioned the meeting room, and you are an operator, a meeting room booking operator as well. So is the business coming back from what you see right now? Or you mentioned also that this brainstorming session were hard to have just through Zoom meeting. So does it compensate a bit the drop in revenues that those spaces are experiencing?
Well, of course, you cannot generate the same revenue from just having a virtual office or a meeting room as you would from renting an entire workspace to your tenants. But still, we noticed an increase in leads for virtual offices and meeting rooms during the quarantine period. But for example, if we take April, when the quarantine began, we really had a low amount of leads. Then in May, there was an increase, and now we see that actually we're registering more deals, so things are getting a lot better.
Yeah. So or better is it getting? Is it just a 20% back on the previous track, or is it just really a recovery that we can confidently look forward to and say, okay, 100% back is at side distance?
I would say that probably we have 20 to 30% more
in May.
than we had.
Yeah, in May.
Yep.
Okay, and same thing. Is on average that's what you see, or you really see some differences by countries? We know that in Eastern Europe, for instance, has been less hit than some other Western countries in Europe. Does it impact? Do you see also that the mood is maybe more positive now?
Well, we can see this tendency actually all over the world. So especially in countries like North America, where we mostly had leads for virtual offices. So now this tendency is actually remaining.
Okay, okay. And do you see also your in the members you have, or the companies which are using your platform, a tendency also to change the focus of their product? Or do you see them, for instance, we heard that some players were converting their meeting rooms into private offices because the open office or the open space was not used at all because of social distancing, also the drop in the demand from freelancers. Is it something from where you are you see as well happening?
Exactly. So now, because of this requirement for social distancing, co-working operators cannot offer all the facilities they had. For instance, common areas are not allowed anymore. So of course they would not be able to provide that, and they're trying to change their working models, switching to more closed offices and making meeting rooms.
Okay, okay. And from do they tell you that it could be something just temporary, or is it something could be long lasting, meaning that the layout and the allocation of the space within those operators is there to stay, and that okay, less meetings, less conversation, more areas which are dedicated to productive tasks?
Well, at this point, of course, it is really hard to predict what is going to happen because
Yeah,
things are really changing
yeah,
rapidly. But from what we see now, this is probably going to be the working model for at least the next 6 months, because
6 months, yeah,
operators, to stay afloat, they're trying to adjust to those
yeah,
new
yeah.
requirements.
And how about this? We speak, the key word now is more and more is hybrid. So offline, online, hybrid. So hybridation of space, or space who are inventing new products and services which are way more connected to online usage and practices. So we mentioned this example of an operator which had converted the meeting room into what they call Zoom room. So is that something also you see happening, and how does it also impact your own business to some extent?
Well, as our platform specializes in all kinds of workspaces, co-working, traditional office, virtual offices, and meeting rooms, then it didn't impact us to this great extent because we're quite flexible
Mm-hmm.
in these terms. But of course, we see this hybridization tendency, and probably this is what to expect in the nearest future.
So what shape could it take, this hybridization, from what you see?
What do you mean?
So how do you see the hybridization taking place? Do you see examples of what would is it going to look like? Is it more, I don't know, more cameras in the room, more smaller teams, more, do you see a direction for that hybridization? How concretely could it be and look like?
Well, of course, operators will have to equip their rooms with different facilities
Yeah.
for the Zoom meetings and different online meetings. Also, of course, the rooms where people will be, they will have to be specially equipped to meet all the standards
Mm-hmm.
that are nowadays.
And you see that already in your, because you have profiles for spaces on your platform, so that they update it maybe, or is it something you see, and do you see some trends already from from that perspective?
Yes, we definitely do see that operators are updating their rooms, making different adjustments. So yeah, this is happening, and operators were actually really active
Yeah.
throughout this quarantine period because as they didn't have the possibility to meet with the clients face to face,
Yeah.
they really switched their attention to different marketing platforms.
Okay. And can you elaborate on that? Do you have examples or in
Uh,
mind?
Yes, so for example, the partners we work with, they really became a lot more active, and also as we're always open to enroll new partners to our platform, we saw a lot of mutual activity because right now operators are really trying to find new ways to get more clients for their workspaces, and this is actually where
But
we were trying to help.
can you think of a space or an example you saw on your platform who changed name or change the pricing or change the features they are offering and that you have seen in that direction we are mentioning?
Well, for example, Regis sent us a lot of updates that we implemented.
Okay. Like what? On what specific things
They
that are new, for instance?
they were changing their workspaces to look different and to have those spaces between tables and all
Yeah.
those requirements. Yeah, so we really
But
had a lot of
but not
updates.
specifically regarding the hybridation and the more virtual and online facilities that were implemented, right?
Yeah, again, there were a lot of more meeting rooms that were equipped specifically for Zoom meetings,
Okay.
different online features.
And do those companies and operators adjust the pricing also for that? Does it cost more to rent a Zoom meeting at their place now than it used to be the case for meeting rooms?
Well, at this point, we do not see increase in the pricing.
Okay.
I think this is something that operators usually might negotiate directly with the client, depending on what specifically they need.
Okay.
At this point, we didn't observe a rise in the pricing.
Okay. So to some extent, it's becoming a must to have this webcam and visio conferencing features available in the meeting rooms, that you can just rent out a meeting room and not have that available. Is it right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, great. Do you have something to add or a thought that you think worth sharing also regarding the next months or you envision things?
Well, what we see is that in terms of occupancy, for example, previously what we noticed was that operators were almost 90% occupied, the majority of them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the problem was for us, because if we found them clients, sometimes it was hard to actually make a deal because the workspace was occupied. But as now there is a lot of vacancy, so we don't think this will be ever a problem, like in the nearest 6 months for sure, or perhaps in a year.
Okay, so it's a good time for you. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that's right.
So we're more offering for you to make deals and connect and make the matchmaking between demand and offering.
Exactly. So we're trying our best to help our clients, and we're of course always open to enroll more of those willing for us to help.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Olga, for sharing those thoughts and data with us from your clients. And yeah, all the best for MatchOffice for the coming months and years.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.